What if a $2.50 investment could unlock years of governmental funding for a child's education and potentially save her life? In this episode, we continue our conversation with Cassandra Treadwell, the founder of So They Can, and dive deeper into how health, infrastructure, and human rights intersect with education in some of the world's poorest communities. You'll hear about how her organization is tackling extreme poverty, not just with feel-good stories, but with scalable, data-backed solutions that drive sustainable change in East Africa.
I've sat with a group of women who have asked me to bring So They Can's projects to their community, and I've said, but why do you sell your girls? And they said to me, you don't understand. Everyone in our village has to have a purpose. There is so much poverty here. If I have 6 mouths to feed and they're all going to die, unless I sell one girl to get a few goats to keep them alive for another 3 or 4 months, I need to do that. However, if you provide education for that girl and give her a different future where she is going to, when she graduates from high school, bring us 20 goats a month. So it's the desperation. There's nothing sort of evil in it. It's just they're trying to survive. So we need to give them an alternative, and that's what I listened, and that's what they asked for in that education space.
Here's what we cover: how clinics, boreholes, and birth certificates are all part of an education strategy, and why a simple missing document could block a child's future for success. How So They Can is reducing maternal death, child marriage, and female genital cutting through medical outreach and local empowerment. Why investing in girls' education isn't just moral, it's the highest leverage and highest return move you can make for global impact. If you've ever wondered how you can actually move the needle through your charitable giving, this episode will change how you think about charity, health equity, and intergenerational change. And lastly, let us invest in the future of humanity together. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Investing for Doctors podcast. I've got Cass Tredwell back with me today. And Cass, for those who have not met you, give us the 30-second spiel about who you are and what you do.
Thanks, B. So, I'm a former lawyer turned international development specialist. So I started up our organisation So They Can almost 20 years ago now, and we empower some of the poorest children in Kenya and Tanzania through education.
Right. And for those that have listened to our previous episode, we talked about the education sort of initiatives and really about what is a charity, how do you look at charities and that sort of things. But I think in this episode, we'll talk about some of the things you alluded to, but we didn't have time to talk about last time.
Great.
And I think one of the things that the astute listener would have picked up is that you actually have some healthcare related programs that are running in these two countries. So tell us a bit more about that, what you're hoping to achieve, and the potential model, pitch it to us.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will. So our core focus is education, but I learned very quickly, probably in the first week or so actually of starting this work, that there's very little point focusing on education if the children die of very avoidable diseases before they can get to school.
Yeah, or are starving. Yeah.
Or are starving. So we quickly learnt that alongside our education programs, we need what we call our community development program. And under that, there are 4 projects, one of them of which is our community health project.
What are the other 3, just for those listening?
So we have our women's empowerment project, which is our Wazisha, which is Swahili for empowerment microfinance. So we provide microfinance and business education for our women in our communities, our mothers of our school children generally. And then we have our child, youth and development. So we support orphaned and vulnerable children, and we find them kind of foster care environments and support their education and development as well. And then we've got our community health project as well. After.
So I think previously you mentioned that as part of the education, the schools program, you actually have farming sort of practice and also sort of
income
water
generation.
And so that provides income generation for the schools and the children, because getting them to come in means they got fed, and eventually after this 8-year program, the school can generate income to maintain and upkeep and do what it needs to do.
And we can exit and move
Exactly.
to more needy areas. So it's a sustainability piece.
Yeah.
So that farming is a really big part of our sustainability model. And we do extrapolate that out and use it for our community health project as well, because we are very conscious that we want to support and empower communities. We don't want to be providing aid forever on a never-ending basis. So we're always clear with communities before we start any of our partnerships with them that we have this 3-phase development model over around 8 years, and at the end of that we will be exiting financially, because we would have worked with them enough so they're empowered to continue on their own.
Yeah, they're sustainable at that stage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we sort of apply that same model to our community health. So to give you a bit of a background about what we do in the health sector over there. So we have partnered with 2 clinics. We work with 2 government clinics, which are incredibly under-resourced, overwhelmed with population, and understaffed and undertrained. So we go in and we support them through about a 6 to 8 year period with things like capital infrastructure on the ground. So recently, one of our clinics, Cheshiramon Clinic in Kenya, we put a whole maternity suite on in that area because there were a lot of maternal deaths, because most of our communities in this area, they give birth out in the bush with obviously dangerous results.
Yeah, with the attached mortality rates.
Exactly. And so now they can come into this maternity suite and give birth a lot more safely. The other side of that for us is that if a child doesn't have a birth certificate, then they won't get the capitation grant for their education at school from the government. So they miss out on government funding. So when we bring them into our clinics to give birth, then we can get them the birth certificate. Because if you give birth in the bush, you're not going to have the transport money to go into a registrar's office and get your child a birth certificate.
Right. It's just very simple stuff. You forget the repercussions that follow on into the education space, right? So it sounds like you've solved the problem with the education framework that you have, and then you realize, but there's so many other problems that's feeding into it. I mean, first of all, it's the lack of food, the hunger, and so you devise this farming strategy, and now it's this like, but they're not registered, so
the government aren't paying as much as they should, because of a simple birth certificate.
Because that person doesn't exist.
So let's
technically.
fix that. Exactly.
And, that's very, very, very interesting, and it's one of those things that in a first world country like Australia, you just don't imagine. It doesn't register that could be a problem. But it's such a real problem.
And it kind of embarrassed me that it took me too many years to work out that the reason why the government wasn't giving us enough money per school was because of a simple thing about a birth certificate.
A piece of paper. And
because I didn't think about that.
And probably there's like people knew about it, but they just know it's like, this is the way it is.
So
can you retrospectively register people?
So that's what we've just spent a number of months and years in all of our 52 schools doing. But I can't say to them, the parents, can you just get your kids registered and get a birth certificate? Because there's money in the transport and going to the registrar's office. You've got to pay a fee to do that. So we're like, well, let's invest in that for a year. And then the ongoing effect of that is that they get $13 per child per year from the government that they weren't otherwise getting, the government that should be empowering them and educating them. So we learn a lot as we go, that's for sure.
That's how much does it cost to register them, for instance?
It's like about $2.50.
Well, that's like the best return on investment you can ever think about.
In the last 6 months, we've accumulated from the government about 75,000 Australian dollars worth of fees that we weren't getting before that. I mean, if there was an investment that you told me I had to pay $2.50 and I'll get $13 back every year. That's a no-brainer. It's a great ROI.
From a
isn't it?
Charity perspective and a school perspective.
That's right.
Wow. Okay.
So we're just constantly about finding problems and then listening to the community, stopping and listening before we think, why don't we just do it this way? Because you'll eventually get to that problem of, well, we don't have birth certificates. And then you go, well, maybe we should solve that rather than finding a bus to do whatever, which is a lot more costly.
Yeah.
So, listen. Shut up and listen is a good thing.
when you learned that piece of information,
I felt like an idiot.
Was it just like,
Because it was like year 3 or 4. It was like,
Right,
oh my
right.
God, why didn't I just know that piece of information sooner?
Yeah.
And now, because of the advocacy work our amazing team on the ground have done with the government, they've actually placed an office and a registrar full-time into this very remote community so that they can now, they can access that, and they can get all of the other sort of 30,000 children registered that we were sort of spending money and taking time to do.
Wow.
So it's cool that our relationship with the government does pay off eventually as well, long term.
Yeah.
So that is another piece of our sustainability piece is birth certificates and farms. So so for the clinics, we have these 2 sort of good clinics in the area that we've put a lot of capex on the ground into so that we can encourage people to come and use the clinics, obviously for medical and safety reasons, but also for our education piece. And then alongside the clinics, generally the community are very generous with land, so they will donate, say, 10 acres to the clinic, to us/the clinic, in the clinic's name always. It's never in So They Can's name. And then we will spend money on things like getting water there, whether that's a borehole or rainwater harvesting. It just depends on the environment. That's an expensive piece. Like a borehole is about $75,000 to drill in this community because the water table is around 250 meters. It's really deep.
250 meters. Wow. So
it's a high initial investment for us, but the ongoing effect is massive. They've got clean water for health, but also they can sell that water to companies that buy water and deliver them to other communities as an income generation piece. It also means they've got hydration to create a farm at these clinics. So
because you can't do sustainable
farming.
You
can do nothing
if you
without
don't
water.
have water.
Well, people will just wait and hope that the rains come. But if they don't, then you've lost 6 months worth of maize. So having a consistent water supply is key and essential. So in that land, we will establish that. We'll create the farms, which then bring an income not just for the clinic, but also the clinics provide, in each clinic we have 25 what we call community health practitioners, CHPs, and they travel to the really remote areas in these communities and do home visits, for want of a better word. So they will go into a family's sort of grass hut and they will go, there's 8 children here, we're going to vaccinate them all, and we're going to follow you during your sort of maternal health care or when you're pregnant, and then we'll make sure that we get you to the clinics for the delivery of those babies. So these are people that would never have seen a doctor. They can't afford the matatu, the bus fare to get to a clinic. So they're just, they die of very avoidable diseases. So those CHPs are an offshoot of the clinics that we create, and it's all done in partnership with the government. So we work with the Department of Health from a national to that local level and upskill them, augment the very small amount of money that the governments give them for that 8-year sustainable development cycle that we have, with the hope that by then the farms will have created enough income generation and the water that they can take over our funding, the funding that we were providing, and they can take over that funding stream themselves and be self-sufficient and sustained. And then we also do, because this is all about trying to get basically to the children, the children's population of our schools, to ensure that they're healthy to be able to receive the education that we're focusing on.
You're feeding into the school, because if they're so
there are assets
uncared for, and when they enter school, it's not effective.
Exactly.
So you're keeping them.
They have to be healthy. And also, we would have invested into, say, 6 years of education for a child, and then if they die of a snake bite or die because of malaria or whatever it is, what a waste of investment for 6 years, not to mention the tragedy, obviously. And so then the third piece of the getting to these children and their families for medical care to ensure that they are in a good position to receive the education we focus on is we have what we call our medical camps. So every 4 months we put on a medical camp. So we will gather 30 to 40 clinicians from the Kenyan or Tanzanian Department of Health. We will arrange all the logistics and the medical supplies and equipment and medication and vaccines. And literally, it's amazing to go to. If any of your listeners ever want to come, it's such an incredible experience. You'll be driving in the middle of nowhere and you wouldn't have seen a person for hours, and then you just suddenly stop the vehicles. Everyone jumps out and just gets twigs and makes these grass huts, about 8 of them. And one of them will be sort of the maternal care hut, and the other one will be the geriatric hut, and the other one will be the vaccinations hut. And then just slowly over the next half hour, just all these people come out of the bush. It's just we've done some sort of marketing around it, but somehow that sort of African bush telegraph works. And before we know it, there's 1,000 people there with kids.
Wow.
So we then spend the next 2 days vaccinating them all.
Yeah.
You know, heart checks, everything, diabetes, all that kind of stuff, delivering nutrition packs to some of the kids. And it's really good for us as well, because then we're watching the girls in particular that are at risk of being sold off and female genital cutting. And so we can register them all into school and tell their parents that they're coming to school. And that's where we have these.
Yeah, that's a recruitment process.
It's a recruitment process. And then I know we're sort of watching. There's a really kind of sad thing over there in this Bringo community when the girls, when the cutting season starts, which is around November after harvest, so they've got money. And the reason why they cut their girls, the female genital cutting, is that so that they can be married and they get the dowry from the marriage.
Well, why do they have to be cut? Because
it shows that they're pure and that they haven't been touched, so the men would want to buy them. And so when the girl is ready, has been cut and is ready for marriage, they put their hair into these little coils and put the red earth into their hair, and it's a marketing message that they're ready for sale. So when we go to do these clinics, we see a number of the girls have that hairstyle, and so we know they're at risk of about to be sold off, and if they get sold off, we've lost them. They've gone into that perpetual poverty of they will just become breeders, basically. This 50, 60-year-old man that bought them as his 4th or 5th wife will just continue to have sex with her, and she will just have 6 or 7 children that she can't feed. And it's just that perpetuating horrible myth of poverty. So we need to get them into school to break that, to break that tradition and that practice. And with respect to the communities we work with, I've sat with a group of women who have asked me to come and support, bring So They Can's projects to their community. And I've said, but why do you sell your girls? I'm a mother of 4. Why are you selling your girls? And they said to me, you don't understand. Everyone in our village has to have a purpose. There is so much poverty here. If I have 6 mouths to feed and they're all going to die unless I sell one girl to get a few goats to keep them alive for another 3 or 4 months, I need to do that. However, if you provide education for that girl and give her a different future where she is going to, when she graduates from high school, bring us 20 goats a month, then we will rather that. So it's the desperation. It's not like there's nothing sort of evil in it. It's just they're trying to survive. So we need to give them an alternative, and that's what I listened, and that's what they asked for in that education space. So those clinics are amazing as well.
I'm just curious, say that the guy who has goats would have purchased a girl, just to breed.
10, 11, 12. It's just a sign of wealth to have a 3rd or 4th wife.
Yeah, but does this person not look after the offspring of that, or is that just the mother's problem then?
Does the man not look after the 13-year-old wife?
Well, I mean, I have to look after the wife and feed the wife, right?
No.
So they don't?
No. This is the crazy thing, because the girls are just seen as commercial property of the men. So they get a wife, and it's the wife's... You'll ask a man in this community, what are the different roles? Who does what? And the woman looks after the goats, she feeds the children, she looks after the children, she provides the food for the man that night on the table, and she maintains their grass huts. And then you say, what does the man do? And he says, well, we're nomadic, so every 6 years we move to a different location and I'm in charge of that. So we're sensitizing the communities to change that so that the men can start stepping up.
So after 6 years, what happened? They just
They just
off.
move, well, because they're pastoralists, and this is another thing that we're trying to change. We're trying to move them to be agriculturalists so they stay put and stay with the education, which is working. We have seen that over the last 7 years. It is working. But because they're pastoralists, they go, well, we'll be in this area with our goats for 6 or 7 years, and then it'll all dry up, and then we'll move to another area and find water and land somewhere else.
Yeah. And
so we need to move them to be
girls
agriculturalists.
and, do these, wives and children follow with them, or do
they
sometimes
tend
abandon
to,
them?
yes.
Yeah.
Often, but quite often these men, there's a lot of men that will just leave their families, their wives and their children. So it's very much up to the wife to feed the child, to find the money and to buy food to feed the children.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a very different model.
It's a very different model.
And I've had men say to me here, but how can men do that? They've got their own kids. Like, how could they treat their daughters like that? How could they sell their daughters? And what I have to keep reminding people is that they're not seen as human beings.
Yeah, it's a different.
They're like a goat. They're a piece of property to trade.
Yeah.
And so that's a massive part of our work. We've got a project called Keeping Girls in School and our school community, and it's about not training, that's a terrible word, but trying to empower our communities with the education to see that girls have human rights. Internationally recognised, nationally recognised. It's a FGC, female genital cutting, is illegal in Kenya, just like it is internationally. And it's a tribal thing. And the only way it's going to stop is if they realise that let's not sell them at 13 for two goats. Let's let them go to school so that then they will graduate as an engineering student and bring us 30 goats a month. And we literally do that. We take girls that have become engineers or doctors back to their communities and we say, this is what will happen if you let us educate your girls. And it's slowly changing and break that cycle.
Well, you probably need a generation or two for that to happen.
Wow, it's amazing. We've been there for 8 years in this community, and already we've increased the girls' attendance rate by 75% in our schools.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
We just have to keep them there till the end of secondary school when they become autonomous human beings, no longer the commercial property of their brothers and fathers.
It's a different cultural dynamic, isn't it?
But it's poverty driven. It's just necessity. And then there's this cultural aspect of the pure wife, which we need to change as well. Because the whole FGC piece is a clinical disaster for the girl. It's incredibly painful. The way they do it is very dangerous. They use, the Coke bottles. They use the tops of the Coke bottles. It's very infection, high risk.
Yeah, so I mean, there's just definitely a mortality rate from that.
Massive. A lot of them bleed out.
Yeah.
So it needs to change.
On the flip side, right, do you get a lot of pushback from these old men?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. So we did so we have this incredible, what we call it, I love it, Champions of Change, and it came from actually a really lovely donor called Peter Falvey that has worked in this agricultural development space for a long time. He's an Australian farmer, and he said to me one day, why don't you get locals, give them motorbikes and get them to find out what kids aren't at school, kind of thing. So we created what we call our Champions of Change, and they are local mums and dads, and we have a champion mother and father in each one of our 52 schools, and then a champion of change who's in the region. And they are our eyes and ears on the ground. So they'll know the kids that aren't being sent to school. They'll know the girls that are about to be cut. They'll know the disabled and handicapped children that are very stigmatized over there and that are hidden in a room. And they are incredibly brave and courageous, and they will go and talk to their own village members. So they're respected because they're in that village, and they will talk to them about the benefits of educating them. So quite often we can then take girls into boarding schools, into our boarding schools, so that they're protected from the brothers and the fathers or husbands that want them to just be wives or dowry or property. And so for the first maybe 6 to 12 months, we're a little bit nervous about then coming back and finding them in the boarding schools and the risk to the head teachers and some of our staff. So some of them have sort of necklace, bracelets, alerts and stuff, but actually we've had to not do that quite so much because we're slowly getting known in the community for what we do. And so the men tend to kind of respect that and accept it because they're starting to see the return on investment in education is tenfold over selling her at 13.
And you know, I think we've spent a lot of time talking about the girls. What's happening with the boys? Because, you know, they're part of, you know, if they're the ones that are growing up. Perpetuating it.
So all of our projects include, so when I talk about keeping girls in school, all of our boys go to all of those lessons as well around the human rights and it's slowly changing. We're seeing the boys go, actually, I don't want my wife to be cut. I'm quite happy for her not to be. I want her to be an educated girl. You know, we put signs and murals on classroom walls around a man cannot own an educated girl, and I hear boys walking around talking about that, and they want to have an educated wife, and it's just slowly
and themselves as well, I guess.
For themselves as well,
because they may not want to just rely on subsistence farming or, you know,
and they absolutely relish the education, and we've just had one just graduate with an economics degree, the first one in that community to have a degree, about 10,000 people from university. And he's just such a lovely young man, and he wants to go and give back to that community and be a mentor for the boys in that community around the power of education and being involved and the difference it can make. And what I really love, actually, most of the boys that we are getting through to the end of tertiary now, they want to give back. They're not. No one's ever asked me, "Can you get me to Australia?" Like you would expect, you know, or New Zealand.
There's a I guess
escape.
Ethnic pride, or there's a.
They want to change the future
who they are and for their people.
Yeah, they want to so that their sons and daughters don't have the same endless cycle of poverty. They want to be the change makers in that area. And we've done a lot of sort of mentorship to steer them in that direction, but they are feeling the return on doing that themselves emotionally. They're very proud. They're very well respected in the communities, these graduates. So
it's very hard. I mean, look, it's a heartwarming. It's such a lovely story when you can see how, you know, you've given it enough years for some of the payoffs to come back and see the results of that coming through, and then they are giving back and
they're proud,
becoming you know, not just a sustainable thing, but it's accelerating because that's actually you know, empowered local people to also give back and come back to their communities as leaders or mentors in their own community and do that.
That's what really excites me. So last week when I was over there, seeing how respected and empowered like our champions of change are, our graduates, students, seeing female or male students being asked to speak in community settings where normally the younger generation, certainly not the girls, were never asked to speak by the elders, seeing them just, you can see their minds sort of clicking away going, there is another way to this pastoralist lifestyle that we had, and being excited and empowered by it. I love that. And just changing the status from the incredibly extreme poor, they come on board as a champion of change, and suddenly they're sort of elevated in the community's respect, and then they feel so good for that. So I really do. It's a real buzzword, sustainability, and it's too often I've seen organisations make promises to those really vulnerable in our communities and not keep them and break them, and we are determined never to do that. So to talk about a sustainable development model is a big thing for us with this community. To say we're going to empower and exit, we had to do a great deal of due diligence and empirical and statistical research to make sure we could make good on that promise. And that's what excites me the most, to think that we really have found the solution to sustainable development, because it's a challenge.
I mean, you mentioned you have over 50 such schools right now. I mean, you must be doing something right to get that many, because I mean, obviously there's some, over the years you've expanded multiple projects at the same time, but to get from 1 to 50 something.
The communities trust us. Our partnerships with them are strong. We have a forecast that by 2029 we will have exited and sustained all 52 of our schools. So that just means we can scale. We can do it all again in a much more needy area by that point, because we would have economically empowered that community around the school.
That region. Yeah. All right. And do you find any difference between, say, Tanzania and Kenya?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Is there cultural difference, ethnic differences?
So they would say the Tanzanians think the Kenyans are very rude. And that's really just a vocab thing.
Yeah.
Like the Kenyans don't say please and thank you. You never hear tafadhali, which is please in Swahili and Kenyan. You hear it all the time in Tanzania. They have a very formal language in Tanzania compared to Kenya. So I suppose it's a bit like Australia and New Zealand. The Kenyans think that the Tanzanians are, I'm speaking for them, but potentially, 10 years behind the Kenyans from a development point of view.
Yeah.
But the Tanzanians probably think the same from a, really polite, humanitarian, respectful point of view.
Yeah. But in terms of like, the problems that you guys see, and also the solutions to the problem, it's very similar, isn't it?
It's very similar.
Yeah.
The main difference for us in our three communities is our extreme poverty area in rural Kenya, being Baringo community, which is a semi-arid region. The soil is not nearly as good as the soil in Tanzania and Nakuru. So the farming, we really need to get that water solution, consistent water, into Baringos, into our schools and clinics up there to ensure the crops work. You cannot rely on the rains up there. And
so it's a microenvironment, really.
Yeah. It's that semi-arid region where if it either rains way too much and there's massive stones under the soil, so it's just a wash off, or it just doesn't rain and nothing grows. Whereas in Tanzania, the climate's a little bit easier to deal with from a farming perspective. Still good to have consistent water supply in all those areas. But generally, they've got the same gender violence, female genital cutting, child marriage in both countries. Yeah. The region we work in Tanzania has the highest gender violence statistics of the whole of Tanzania.
Yeah. And I would assume that the regions you guys work at is very different from, say, the capital or the larger cities where
generally in Nakuru, our first community, which is what I call that sort of urban poverty, very similar to Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, and similar to Dar es Salaam, which is just a lot of slums, a lot of unemployment. No land, very expensive land.
So it's not just a rural problem. It's
kind of a different kind of poverty. So you still have in the urban areas, parents not sending their children to school because they can't afford the school uniform. So we need to economically empower with microfinance for the women, stuff like that we have to do in those areas. But they don't have the land to farm, so they don't have the farming issues around drought and water. But they have the unemployment, extreme poverty issues around, the slums and the surviving off $1 a day and that kind of stuff.
So how do you, it sounds like if there's not enough land, then how do you get the farming aspect?
So in our school communities in Nakuru, we're around those urban areas. We do a lot of work around the birth certificates, but also we ensure that the community, because the schools are bigger, there's like 1,000 in the school. So then we do get like a 5 to 6 acre strip of land that we can use to generate the income from the farms. And also some of our schools, they will rent land to farm 2 kilometres away. And the income generated from that, because they've got closer access to market to sell, so they can more quickly return their investment on the generation, means that they can continue on with that renting the property. So it's a different way to skin the cat, but it's the same cat. It's a terrible thing to say, isn't it?
Always a skinning cats.
Sorry, that's a terrible statement. I'm often that's just out there. I've never thought about it.
Oh, well.
Delete that. That's awful.
No, we like it. Keep it.
It's awful.
That's okay. I've got a cat now and I still use that phrase.
Sorry, it's a terrible phrase, isn't it? I've never thought of it before. It just suddenly I had this vision. So.
We've just been talking very visual things.
Hey.
So now development in Africa is going to be a huge issue over the next sort of couple of decades.
It's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, as well. And I think you mentioned that a third of the world's population growth is going to come from Africa, the African continent.
Yeah, in the next 25 years.
Yeah. And so there's obviously, Africa has a long history of, I guess, colonialism and, foreign sort of intervention and also very, I guess, violent change of governments, which is probably very different from what we are used to in the West. And I mean, in the West, we had that maybe a couple hundred years ago.
There's more instability, isn't there?
Yeah. So now there's stability, and I think in the African nations, there's now starting to be some semblance of stability, albeit there's still ethnic wars and cleansings happening and countries being divided based on tribal lines and geographic lines. But there's still a lot of things to be excited about. Some of the stuff you're doing. There's lots of investments now going into Africa.
Emerging markets is massive in Africa.
I mean, the Belt and Road Initiative, China, and also is pouring tons and tons of money into Africa. I mean, we can debate about the advantages and disadvantages of that, but it is happening, and the rules are very different, isn't it? I mean, have you come across any sort of forms of, has that helped you guys in what you're doing, or has that impacted some of the things that you're seeing on the ground, in recent years? Because you've been there before Chinese investments were going in.
Yes, it has. Whatever you think about Chinese investment, putting better roading systems and trains into these countries helps get crops out for those farmers.
Infrastructure,
and it helps them move their crops around to be able to access market to sell their produce, their maize, their beans. So should help that financial flow come back to the farmers. We just have to be careful that too many people aren't clipping the ticket in between and the actual farmer doesn't get the profit of that. But the whole tech software field in Africa is really exciting. So M-Pesa, have you heard of M-Pesa? So it's a phone banking system that was developed in Africa.
For Africa.
For Africa. And that is amazing. It's totally changed, again, access to financial services for the poorest of people. So I will be in these remote Baringa areas where I haven't seen anyone for hours, and they will pay for something on their phone. And it's just awesome access to market initiative. So that whole tech industry is really growing.
It's like they don't have a established banking sector that has the reach,
and they won't have the transport to get to a bank. They won't anywhere near where they are, but also they won't get finance from banking institutes. Whereas I can send someone in the middle of Baringo money from New Zealand, and they will get it through my phone, through M-Pesa. So that kind of stuff really excites me, the sort of tech industry over there. And just that whole entrepreneurial space, like that a third of the population is going to be made up of that younger generation sitting there now that we're educating in Africa. And they have so much resilience and determination. They have to, because they don't have a social welfare umbrella. So they have to make sure that they maximize on any opportunity and create their own opportunities. So we have kids in our schools that they know they walk 12 kilometres to school every day, and they're going to go home with homework to do for exams, and they've got no electricity and they've got no food. So they hide out in the school compound until we've left, and then we find them the next morning, or like on a Monday morning after a Friday night, staying there and nothing to eat because they wanted to use the electricity to study. So they're tough and determined and bright. And you couple that determination, resilience, toughness, entrepreneurialism with quality education, like we can support them with, and you're creating the next international entrepreneurs, the next clients of commercial institutes all around the world, all the human resourcing for those corporate industries. So it doesn't just make philanthropic sense to invest in Africa now. It makes commercial sense as well to do that. And it really excites me. I think all they need is the funding support to get the quality education, because they're individuals that are going to make the most of that. And they're going to have a big place in the world in the next 20 to 25 years.
Definitely. I mean, I was born in China. Some of the things that you're talking about, the people that go out to the rural areas to administer healthcare, that's something that happened back in sort of the Mao's China, where they sent all these people to deliver basic healthcare, and they've also built these schools, shacks in the mountains to educate the children there. I mean, albeit like China didn't have the as much gendered violence, because as part of communism they made everyone equal. And one of for all the horrible things that Mao did in China, one of the greatest thing he did was that he recognized that women were half of the workforce. And I mean, whether this was intentional or unintentional, he basically said that women held up half of the sky. And so there was that humongous female empowerment in China. And that's led to where they are today.
Well, I've always been impressed about that with China, that they think 100 years ahead. They don't think the next 3 years that they're in government ahead.
No. And
which most of our politicians do in other countries.
Yeah. Oh, that is a whole can of worms.
No, I'm not allowed to go there probably.
I'm more than happy to go into that. And I think that's, if you reflect on some of the government, the way people is governed, it's a very much Chinese sort of approach to the way people should be governed, because China is one of those old civilizations that had emperors and basically authoritarian rule for thousands of years, and it's a very collective society where you would sacrifice the individual for the collective. So
the utilitarian good.
The utilitarian good. So almost in a way that to have democracy and put my wants ahead of society's wants, that's taboo. That you're a bad Chinese person for thinking that you matter more than the collective. And so in a way, I never felt that democracy was a thing that will really be effective in China in the way that we have it in Australia, or the way that it's done in the US. I mean, really, the US is not a direct democracy either.
Not currently.
It's a collection of republics, really. It's more like a republic, very similar to how our system works, but we probably have more direct democracy than they do, in a way.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's that concept of nationalism as well. I think, that collectivism is
absolutely
feels like the antithesis of nationalism. And I do think nationalism is destructive. The tribal violence that happens in Africa, the Rwandan genocide, it's all about, looking after, like you said, that deontological, looking after yourself, your individual, as opposed to thinking of the collective.
Yeah. But the thing is that I guess in Africa, they look at themselves as, this is my along ethnic lines. Whereas in China, it's a very homogeneous population. Well, they've artificially made it a homogeneous population because there is a North China, South China genealogy divide. But everyone is considered Han Chinese.
Right.
So it's that identity. That identity is put forward that unites people, and it's also united amongst language lines as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas in Africa, everyone speaks their own tribal language. There are common languages.
Yeah.
But there's you have a very
There is a tribal affiliation in Kenya,
exactly.
not so much in Tanzania. They have different tribes, more tribes.
Yeah.
They have 162 tribes in Tanzania and 51 in Kenya, but they're much more affiliated to their tribes in Kenya than Tanzania. It's much more sort of, community, collective in the country, which is interesting.
Yeah. And where you draw that collective line, is that amongst your tribe, or is that amongst your national identity, or is it amongst your region?
Yeah.
And I guess that's you can draw that however you want, because in Australia, the Western Australians think like, oh yeah, we're different from the East Coast people.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're all, everyone in Australia is Australian.
But wouldn't it be good if that Chinese collective could be extrapolated out to the whole world, and we were just one human race?
Oh, absolutely. That would be beautiful.
That would kind of be the answer.
Yeah, I mean, that would be beautiful. But the thing is that I think there is no unity against a common enemy or a common fear or a common problem yet in society.
Why do you think that is?
Because when we're left to our own devices, we bicker about things that, because like we as humans, we are, from a cognitive perspective, we are sensitized to differences. We're sensitized to someone who looks different from me because I don't know who they are. To strangers, babies recognize their parents against strangers. We look out for those things because that could mean that there's a lion in somewhere there, or someone's trying to spear me because they want what I have.
Yeah.
So there's that automatic fear response.
Yeah, we need to desensitize all that.
Yeah,
now that
and we haven't had enough time.
We're not in fight or flight.
Yeah, we haven't had enough time for.
Oh, so you think there's hope it could happen in the next 50 to 100 years?
I think it's possible. I mean, we need to have a big enough problem that we need to...
Yeah, COVID wasn't quite big enough.
No, COVID wasn't big enough. But perhaps, climate change, that might be something that's big enough to unite people.
Yeah.
And you do see that in many areas. There are people uniting across borders. I mean, the Paris Agreement and, the COPE sort of initiatives.
Yeah.
But then there's always going to be outliers because their interests might be at risk.
Yeah.
So it's always a combination of that. And we are coming towards the end of a unipolar world politically.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, well, I think we are. I think
that's encouraging.
I think we are. During the Cold War with the Soviet Union and America, I mean, we learned that the Soviet Union was all a facade, and American and Western agenda basically ruled the planet for 40 years, almost unopposed. And now with the rise of
control issue,
and now with the rise of China, the rise of India, there we're starting to see people who say, "Wait, I don't agree with what you're doing," and they are nuclear powers. They're not going to get you can't just invade them. You can't just overthrow their government, though they've tried. I mean, America is one of the biggest sort of instigator of political instability all around the world. Plenty of examples in Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at the
Middle East.
USAID.
Yeah. The whole Middle East is American geopolitics and remnants of the Cold War.
And they've held that for a long time.
Yeah. So
the power is
Yeah.
is massive. That, you know, that USAID disestablishment, the statistics are 14 million people will die as a result of that in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
5 million being children.
So the interesting thing about USAID is that they do not just fund humanitarian aspects. If you actually looked in where they also fund a lot of media and a lot of journalists. And what that really does is that it projects the narrative, the power. And sometimes they've not been always used to the greater good. And, you know, you can trace a lot of funding back because, there's so much transparency in the American funding system. If you actually trace how some of these things are funded, Voice of America, or, they're trying to fund radio stations in certain countries and use that to amplify discontentment.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, it's, it's bad that we've lost the humanitarian aid aspects, but we've also got rid of all this external voice of a greater narrative. And so that's what I mean by the unipolar world is slowly being pulled back now, and the voice of China and even Russia to an extent, India and China are coming back up, and you see a lot of more of that on the global stage.
And then you throw AI into that, and how everyone's going to use that and
knows?
that voice.
Yeah. The voice of AI. Well, the voice of AI is essentially the voice of the two major competitors, which is China and America, because there's the AI models that are built in China, and there's the AI models that's built in the US. And by and large, there's no other real competitors in there.
A bit like the vehicle industry.
So. Yeah. So where we see how, I guess, the Chinese AI behave very differently from the American AI systems, and we'll see where that clash.
How can you tell which one you're talking to just from the
platform
that you're using?
Yeah. You can just Google it and say this is a Chinese model, this is an American model, and there's really only two countries that have their models, and they are very different. The Chinese model are a lot more censored, but then the American model sometimes will do some really dodgy shit as well. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah. So it's depending on what you want to do, you ask a different model. And soon that's going to be the extension of their respective soft power. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's all about soft power. Hollywood was American soft power. China never really had a soft power. Yeah. But now they're doing is that they're starting to, because on YouTube you see all these tourists going to China, and they leave very favorable reviews of their trips. Yeah. And so that's a projection of soft power. Yeah. And the AI is just an extension.
Just the YouTube industry in China is massive, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. So,
and the access that they're getting.
Exactly.
To moderate people's way of thinking.
Absolutely. And Africa's time will come as well, if they can be united.
That whole geopolitical argument is interesting. I'm glad to hear some hope from you that you don't often hear that and nowadays. But
but it has to be a lot of pain first.
Sadly.
Yeah. You don't get change without pain.
And unfortunately, it's the most vulnerable that tend to feel the most pain. And are most ignored. So
they're the collateral
we just need to keep being their voices, I think.
Exactly.
Standing up for them.
The voice of the
voiceless. They're not
voiceless.
heard.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you're doing.
Well,
which is amazing. And I'm very, very grateful to you giving some of our African children a voice today. I'm incredibly grateful.
And very lovely to have you and come and share your journey and story. And if any of the listeners want to learn more, obviously follow the link. And
and if they want to get involved as a funding partner, donor, whatever we want to call it, I promise they'll see the return on their impact. And it doesn't take much. Like the whole collective concept, if everyone gave $100 a year, then we could fulfill all our medical needs across our community of 34,000.
Yeah, I mean we've got 28,000 members now, and if everyone gave $100, that's 2.8 million.
Phenomenal, Yeah. So
there is hope
watch
yet.
The space. Hopefully
there is hope yet, and thank you.
Very nice spending the afternoon with you. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The information and opinions shared are not intended as personal financial advice. The content presented should not be relied upon for making financial, investment, or other decisions. Listeners are strongly encouraged to seek the advice of qualified financial or legal professionals before making any financial decisions. While we aim to provide valuable and accurate information, we make no guarantees regarding the completeness or accuracy of the content. Any reliance on the information provided is done at your own risk.